Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
It's going good. Draft is in the books, pretty solid one. Not as many draft night trades as we thought in terms of actual player movement, but another influx of talent that's come through. And it's going to be interesting because there were a good handful of guys that landed kind of exactly where they needed to from a fit perspective. A couple of guys slid a lot further than we could have anticipated. And you throw on top of that there's a upcoming class in 2025 that's really set the bar for how this class ends up looking during this year. Just a really important draft class, because I think that next year is just going to be so insane that this year's draft class is going to have to really wake up and wake some fans up, because it's been noted as a weak draft for the longest.
100%. And there was still a lot of cool storylines. I mean, there's a lot of cool trades that that some of us didn't see out of nowhere as well. So it was a pretty entertaining draft night. Of course, the second round was basically just waiting to see where Bronny got drafted. But at the end of the day, by the way, before we get into this episode, they got to change that format of the second round. That looked weak as hell, man.
I think so. Something I was thinking about, I listened to a podcast that had kind of mentioned it, where it would be an interesting concept if they just decided if they're going to do the 2-day format, that maybe they just do the lottery the first day and then do the rest the second. Now, granted, there's a little inconvenience there because that's a ton of picks on the second day. But at the same time, let's be honest. Once you get to the second round, unless you're a diehard draft guy, tapping in on an entirely separate time frame just for second round picks is not the most entertaining television in the world. And then you throw on top of it that, honestly, it caught me off guard that it was 4 p.m. Eastern time.
That caught me off guard.
I did not even realize.
I saw right away that the Raptors made their pick. I'm like, wait, what? I thought this thing was at 6 p.m. or something. And then, but yeah, it's all good. Honestly, I think I like that idea of having it not just a lottery in the first day and then whatever the rest of the second day. Yeah. Just make second round picks 3 minutes in between or 2 minutes in between. Let's be honest, these teams don't need that long to make a second round pick.
Nah, I mean, at the end of the day, we understand the hit rate, so to speak, on second round picks. It doesn't mean that they don't do their thing, but at the same time, we do understand these are guys that are just barely going to make your rotation, going to be signed to 2-way contracts. These are dudes that you're just taking a flyer out on. So yes, you're going to go with your intel, but by that point in your board, you're kind of just throwing darts at the wall and seeing what sticks.
100%. But yeah, that's a quick thoughts on the draft, really. But we have a lot to talk about today. The winners and losers of the NBA draft. That happened a couple of days ago. We're gonna talk about the top 15 free agents and where they're gonna go. There's a lot. There's some big names up on the board, so we're gonna see if they're gonna have any movement or not. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, of course, we have the NBA draft and quiz, which are staples of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. So it's gonna be a pretty action-packed episode. Strap in, and it's gonna be a good one. So thank you guys for coming in and also trying to listen. But before we get into this episode, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at Routine Jumper, Knockdown J. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the daily NBA content, make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram. That's where you can find the clips, the Filter Fridays, all that other stuff you can find on the Hit Your Free Throws podcast on TikTok and Instagram. On YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss an episode. And if you're listening on any podcast network, Spotify or Apple, make sure you subscribe and leave a review for your boys. We highly, highly appreciate it. Jay, are you ready to talk about this draft?
I'm actually really excited to give my thoughts on this draft, because despite the talent disparity compared to other draft classes, I thought some teams did really good in terms of putting a good collection of talent together with multiple first round picks, or even make second round and get some decent talent.
100%. And then that's actually a perfect place to start, because I'm going to throw it over to you, Jay. Who do you have as one of the winners of this draft?
So I think the biggest winner by far, from just a draft asset standpoint, is the Utah Jazz. I think a lot of people are going to sleep on what the Utah Jazz were able to do, but getting Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier both in the first round, getting Isaiah Collier all the way at 29 is insane. But then to be able to get Kyle Filipowski in the second round as well as like this, like, replacement for the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, Kelly Olynyk is probably not going to be on the team next year. So Kyle Filipowski gives you a lot of that passing, a lot of that potential stretch shooting ability at the 4-5 position that Kelly Olynyk provided. But essentially, if you go look at these guys, like if you go back and look at a lot of people's like mock 1.0s from like way earlier in the draft cycle, Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, and Kyle Filipowski were all guys that were mocked in like the top 10 coming into the year. Utah got all three of those guys throughout the entirety of this draft, with two of them coming basically in the last 2 picks of the first round and the first 2 picks of the second round, because it's 29 for Isaiah, 32 for Kyle Filipowski. Like, that's a pretty great draft from a talent value standpoint. And I really think Isaiah Collier has a chance to like burst on the scene as another like Cam Whitmore type, where people kind of overthought what his value on a team could be. Then he gets legitimate minutes to kind of show what his talents look like on a pro floor, and he shows you why he was considered as a potential top five pick earlier in the cycle.
Yeah, no, they were definitely like one of those teams where it felt like a lot of the guys they were choosing were kind of slipping, and people weren't like really understanding why. Mainly someone like Isaiah Collier, were like, potentially he was going to be like maybe an early 20s pick, but the fact that he almost slid to the second round was kind of crazy. And for someone like Kyle Filipowski, people thought he was going to be a first round pick, and people were super surprised when my Raptors didn't take him in as the first pick in the second round as well. I'm actually going to talk about him later because I see Filipowski as a loser of this draft, and we'll get into that a bit later. But at the same time, like, I think these are 3 guys with some high upside sort of draft picks for this team, covering different needs, which is also really good. You got a wing, a guard, and a center. I think the Jazz came out this pretty good. There's still a lot of question marks around Lauri Markkanen and whether he's going to be a trade piece or actually a long-term piece there in Utah. But at the same time, they got a lot of young guys over there covering different areas of the team, and I think that they came out of this draft very satisfied with what they ended up drafting.
TV, do you want to talk about this on the podcast now, or?
I was gonna make it a loser, but do you want to make this? Do you want to talk about this real quick?
No. Okay, no. TV. Maybe I'll do it. I'll be Woj. Dejounte Murray is a New Orleans Pelican now.
What? I didn't even see. Okay, I turned off my notice. Oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. This is like probably the biggest trade that we've like heard like mid pod.
Wow. Okay, so I'll pull up the stats for it basically. Sorry, I thought maybe you saw it too. So I was like, okay, I understand that what we're talking about, but this is kind of insane that it happened mid podcast like this.
All right. Okay. I have the stuff here. You want me to explain it?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Dejounte Murray is a Pelican. Yeah. Wow. In exchange for Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, the 2025 Lakers pick, the 2027 least favorable of the Bucks and Pelicans pick. Dejounte pairs up with Zion, potentially Brandon Ingram. I don't know what's happening with the whole Brandon Ingram situation, but he could still be on the team. Jay, quick thoughts, immediate thoughts on this trade.
Well, I think the first thing, obviously, is that he definitely fits on the team like perfectly at the point guard position as a guy who could be a downhill threat, on-ball defender, a guy that can play next to a CJ McCollum a lot better. I think this also gives them a real true point guard. Loves CJ McCollum as an overall scorer, but in terms of being able to like really facilitate, it's a completely different dynamic. And Dejounte Murray, we've seen it. He just plays better at the point guard position, not playing that off guard next to a Trae Young. When Trae Young was out and Dejounte Murray was next to a Bogdan Bogdanovic, for example, things just looked a lot smoother. It looked a lot easier for him. And he had some of his best performances just playing point guard. And I think that's something that he gets the opportunity to do in New Orleans. Wow, that is insane. To think we're talking NBA draft and now one of the craziest trades of the offseason potentially.
just
Oh,
happened.
and apparently, you know, another part of this that we have to factor in is Dyson Daniels being a guy that goes to Atlanta. He can be a secondary ball handler. He's also a good
All
perimeter defender
defender.
as well. Does not need the ball nearly as much, even not even close in comparison to Dejounte Murray. So
A
he's
bit
a guy who could
lengthier, taller, a bit more
probably
lengthier. Yeah.
play next to a Trae Young. He can maybe even play a little bit of backup point guard potentially for Trae Young as well. They get 2 first-round picks in the process, which is kind of important considering that they lost a lot of their overall draft equity in the Dejounte Murray trade itself. So,
It's a
yeah.
not too bad. I still think the Pelicans win this. And the biggest thing for me here, I mean, to transition over to like my thoughts on it is we don't have to see CJ McCollum at point guard anymore. He just didn't feel natural at that position. We know that he is a natural 2 guard. Obviously, they want to have him as a point guard because of his size. They didn't want to have a small backcourt, but DeJounte Murray is a bit of a taller point guard, better defensively, can still handle the ball, and can still let CJ do his thing at the guard position. Not as much pressure there as a secondary ball handler. So I really like this trade for the Pelicans, trying to kind of switch things up, improve their backcourt for sure. Obviously, they want Dyson Daniels to work out, and the idea of Dyson Daniels is really good. It's just he hasn't really materialized yet in the NBA. Maybe these first round picks could be more draft equity, maybe more trade pieces in the future for the Atlanta Hawks. Same thing as Larry Nance Jr. because he could possibly be wanted by other teams in the league. So I think that Atlanta got a decent deal back, but I think the Pelicans 100% got exactly what they needed, and honestly didn't have to give up too much in order to get it, especially with DeJounte on a long-term deal.
I guess it also potentially shows who they picked in terms of committing to a singular point guard, because obviously it sounded like the entire time the conversation was that one of these guys needed to be moved off of in order to be able to like really pick a direction. And I think that moving Trae Young would probably have been more of an indication that they were going to probably blow the whole thing up, because I think if they move Trae Young, I think they probably move both of them. But because
Yes.
they moved DeJounte, this seems more like a possible move to retool around a Trae Young, and that seems a little bit more viable for what they would want to
Yes.
do. Because this
100%.
Atlanta Hawks team doesn't seem like they want to genuinely take a step back, and I don't think that they want to lose a Trae Young in the process, considering that it's not like guys of his caliber who are, top 7, top 9 point guards in this league just grow on trees. That's not how these things work. We just saw in this draft, it's not any real true, superstar talent at the guard position. There's kind of like, a group of solid guys by committee, but to be able to have a guy that you can consider in any given season as a top 5 guy at his position, you want to be able to cater to that to the best of your ability. I think this does give them some more ammo as well with those 2 first-round picks. So, yeah, like you said, New Orleans definitely gets exactly what they need by being able to essentially slide everybody down the pecking order. They're still able to keep a Herb Jones as well, which is interesting now because maybe he
Yeah.
can play the 3 instead of playing the 2, and that changes his dynamic in terms of what he's able to do defensively. Zion Williamson, if healthy, can play the 4, or, obviously he can play the 3. Where does Brandon Ingram land in all of this will probably be still the most intriguing part of it, because it's not just about Brandon Ingram's fit next to a Zion Williamson that's been the issue for New Orleans. Obviously, the concept of having to pay Brandon Ingram has also been a big thing to take into consideration. But, I mean, the New Orleans front office said that major changes were going to be needed after what they've seen the last couple of years, just trying to stand pat. This is definitely like a swing for the
I need
fences
him.
move.
Yeah, 100%. And it kind of makes more sense now why they drafted Yves Messi at their 21st overall pick to kind of get more of that big man depth. Probably they were still like already trying to get this like deal into works, and they knew that they were gonna have to get rid of Larry Nance Jr. So, they covered their bases. They got their point guard. So I think that overall the Pelicans did pretty well. And this also feels like an indication of how low DeJounte Murray's trade value is at this point. So maybe he can help like revitalize his career over there and maybe like try to also potential once again. But I think it's a good trade overall. Let us know what you guys think down below. DeJounte Murray gets traded mid-pod. This is probably the
Wow.
biggest news we got mid-pod in the history of this podcast. So pretty crazy. But
Wow.
switching gears back to this NBA draft, I'll give you my first winner of this trade of the NBA draft. And for me, it's the San Antonio Spurs. Man, not only did they get Stephon Castle, who we talked about in the last pod, we are big fans of, a bigger guard. now Wemby has a pick and roll partner with him, maybe he still has to be improved with the shooting. But an athletic guard to go with Wemby, I like that idea. But they also potentially got the steal of the draft at number 35 at Johnny Furphy, someone who thought was maybe or like maybe a late teens pick over there. Oh no, he got traded to the Pacers. My bad. Never mind. But
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? Well, I mean, they
no,
still got Juan Nunez at
they got one Nunez as
36.
well. Yeah, but I think they also just make some good moves in general. I mean, they did trade Rob Dillingham, which a lot of people were kind of mad at the time of the trade. But I think that they obviously got the guy in Stephon Castle. They moved a first round pick for 2 first round picks down the road. I think at the same time the Spurs got what they needed, and they're still they're still continuing to build around Wemby. But honestly, when I was making this pick, I think that Stephon Castle's the biggest winner out of all this. This guy gets to play with Wemby. I think that he's a great point guard to put over there, and I'm excited to see how they're gonna perform this regular season.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too is just that Stephon's got to be able to shoot. I mean, that's going to be the main thing that unlocks this whole thing. But I think the most important part when you look at what they did in the draft between getting Stephon Castle, Juan Nunez, and they also picked up Harrison Ingram as well, is this draft clearly indicated that they understand they need a freaking point guard next to Victor Wembanyama. That's the most important thing. For them to go into this draft class and grab 3 guards, 3 different kind of guards, mind you, and still get a little bit of French connection in there, Juan Nunez with that one, but still nonetheless. But the fact that they understood the importance of being able to kind of shore up that guard, doing it through this draft was a very interesting process for them. It'll be cool to see who kind of really emerges out of that. Obviously, I think Stephon Castle is going to be really good, and if he can shoot, it unlocks a lot. But I just think in general they have a lot more ball handling potential out of this. And like you mentioned beforehand, I think anybody who gets the opportunity to play next to Victor Wembanyama, it really opens up real opportunity for them as well. So. But it's all going to come down. I still think that they need a star guard to really unlock what Victor Wembanyama has in terms of this team trying to go for winning basketball. It sounds like after ironically enough, the Dejounte Murray trade that we just, discussed a second ago, that Trae Young might not necessarily be on the table anymore. I think that's probably out of conversation, which, not the worst thing in the world. There's still plenty of other guards to take into consideration that could still maybe fill that spot. And Anthony Simons comes to mind to a lesser degree, although he's not necessarily the facilitating point guard type. He's still really good off the ball in a way that Victor Wembanyama can still get a ton of on-ball reps, and he can still shine next to him. There's tons of other potential that they could go after to kind of still shore up that guard position outside of what they did in the draft. But yeah, San Antonio was solid. I still think the Rob Dillingham thing, there's a world where they might end up ruining that decision. But for right now, I'm content with, I think, the route that they went.
Yeah. And I think another route I was gonna go with this too was just kind of the way that both of these point guards end up going, because even Rob Dillingham, you could consider him a winner of this draft, because I think he found himself in a very good position there in the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not only does he doesn't have the pressure to be a starting point guard right away, he can run behind someone like Mike Conley, bro. And I think for someone like Dillingham, and is kind of yes, he's a bucket getter type of player. You need someone like Mike Conley to kind of show you the ins and outs of the team, and maybe you potentially just hand the keys to him in the, going forward as a potential backcourt made with Anthony Edwards. I think the Spurs trading him away also is a winner for the Spurs, because again, they got their point guard that they felt like they needed already. They got some extra draft capital going forward, but also did Rob Dillingham a favor as well, and putting him on a team where I think he's going to be best suited and can potentially see himself in a starting role in 2 to 3 years.
I mean, that's ironic because honestly, my next winner was Minnesota, and it's because they had one round to make it all work, and it started with them striking by trading up insane, not really even trading up, basically trading for the pick itself pretty outright and getting Rob Dillingham at 8. I mean, you basically got the best on-ball shot creating guard in the entire draft class.
Yeah.
And then to get Terrence Shannon Jr. later on in the first round, you got basically 2 of the best scoring guards in the country last season on a Minnesota Timberwolves team that literally showed us in the series against Dallas that outside of Anthony Edwards on the perimeter, they still struggle to get consistent shot creation. We saw in those games where Jaden McDaniels or Mike Conley could not seem to kind of generate offense for themselves, that offense got really stagnant when you also throw in the fact that Karl Anthony Towns was kind of struggling to shoot the ball every other game. So now you get two guys who their main offensive skill is being able to create their own shot for themselves. And more specifically, Dillingham more so than Shannon can stretch the floor a bit. It gives them a completely different dynamic now where maybe these are two guards that you can insert into the lineup, not necessarily as starters, but just as two pack-a-punch guys off the bench to say, let's go get some points and let's kind of pour on the lead if we're ahead, or let's get back into this game while our starters are on the bench. It gives them a real opportunity to kind of let this thing fly. And you got to also factor in, we've talked about it all year long, Minnesota has one hell of a cap situation this summer.
That's what I was going to say.
So being able to get two really talented guys at the guards position like this in the draft class, if they're able to like really hit on these two guys, you're going to have two cost control dudes who can probably produce for you day one as scoring opportunists. And that's huge for this team in particular when you think about the fact that they're not going to be able to go out and get that kind of guy with draft capital or with cap space because they just don't have it. So this is a huge way to address a very, very important need while also being able to stay within the parameters of being a team that's already staring at the second apron. And more importantly, these are two guys that, like you said, when you talk about doing them a favor, the defense for these roster is already there. So
they're these guys have defense in the league,
so all they have to do is go out and do what they do best, which is go out and score. Because the Minnesota Timberwolves, from a defensive standpoint, already have the foundation around these two, including Anthony Edwards to a lesser degree in terms of what he provides defensively. Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Throw in Rob Dillingham or Terrence Shannon Jr. and you don't feel out of place at all. And Terrence Shannon Jr. was a pretty good, pretty good defender.
Illinois,
basically at Illinois, and even going back to his time at Texas Tech. So you have a really versatile set of opportunity there. Minnesota, I think, did really, really well.
100%. That was the biggest thing I was going to go into as well. Like, in a world where they're basically like right on the edge of the second apron, and you're like, okay, how is this team going to improve? How are we going to add some offensive weapons? Let's trade a couple of middle schoolers for one of the best shot creators in this draft in Rob Dillingham. Again, the Spurs did him a favor. I mean, the Spurs get some draft capital they could potentially use in trades, maybe draft in the future. But the Timberwolves were able to move up and actually get a big time, like one of the big time scoring threats in Rob. And then after getting Terrence Shannon as a 27th overall pick, like you mentioned, a great scorer, still has some size in him as a 6'6" guard / forward. I think those two will slot in right away. And the fact that you're already staring at the second apron, and the fact that you can kind of like mitigate that by having these two like absolute bucket getters, potentially getting to your rotation like pretty early in their careers, is pretty big for the Timberwolves, and I think helps relieve a lot of pressure off Anthony Edwards, because you could tell by the end of that Timberwolves playoff run that he was kind of struggling out there, that he was tired out there. At least with these guys in the court, it kind of relieves some pressure off of him. Hopefully they can materialize something right away, because they could use their production like ASAP.
Yeah, that's the most important part. And for them to be able to do that in a draft class like this, where they were able to just kind of snag two of the better scoring guards in the class, that's, man, talk about balling on the budget, like for real. This is like the definition of making it work within your means. Minnesota's probably not going to be able to make a lot more happen unless they involve a Karl Anthony Towns trade somewhere in the mix. So this is probably the most we're going to hear from them during the summer in terms of making moves. But if this is all they could do, job well done.
100%. But yeah, those are some damn good winners. Is there anyone you want to shout out before we head to the losers? Like quick shout outs?
Obviously I think the Wizards, I mean, we talked about this last podcast when we were doing our NBA, mock draft I told you that I thought like Bub Carrington was basically like my favorite prospect. Like it basically was between him and Ron Holland. Yeah. And to get Bub Carrington at 14 was huge. I thought I had every inkling in the world that I thought he was going to get taken by the Oklahoma City Thunder. And
Yeah.
it didn't happen. And I actually love this more. And as a guy who lives in Baltimore, Maryland, very close to the Washington Wizards, after seeing this draft that they just went through recently with getting an Alex Sarr, getting Carlton Carrington, getting Keyshawn George, like I'm actually like low key kind of excited to go watch Wizards basketball.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we still have to see what they decide to do with maybe like a Kyle Kuzma, for example, or what their decision is on like a Tyus Jones, who is like that's my guy, but I want to see Bub Carrington play as well, so that's kind of a huge thing. But there's still some moves I think that are still left to be made to still kind of like commit to the youth of this team. But Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, like you get very versatile throughout this draft. You get arguably one of the best bigs in the draft class that's like a hybrid center, very flexible, multifaceted kind of guy on both sides of the ball. Bub Carrington, who's just like literally a bucket, plays with a lot of joy. I think he's going to be a really fun guy to watch. And then your typical 3-and-D kind of player in Keyshawn George, who might be like a Cam Johnson type in terms of what he can do. Hopefully a little bit better defensively, despite the fact that he doesn't shoot the ball as well as a Cam Johnson, but can maybe be like a kind of like, strong 35, 36% shooting guy. So I really liked Washington, and I'm a little biased because this is a team I'm probably going to end up watching a lot next year.
Oh, no. They did really well coming out of this draft. And I like that they pick a direction. We talk about this all the time here on the podcast.
Yes, we do.
Love it when teams finally pick a direction. And even though they moved off Denny Avdia, I want to shout out to Trailblazers too. They're a small wonder for me getting Klingon and Denny Avdia during this like draft night process. Is that they just like ended up picking a direction. They drafted Alex Sarr, someone that they needed like in their lineup very badly. They got Bub Carrington. And then like you mentioned, they just got some guys that are gonna be like good potential long-term pieces for them. And again, this out of a draft where there's not a lot of like top talent, you got just a lot of solid guys coming over to the Wizards and giving something for Wizards fans to kind of cheer about because they feel like, you know what, we got exactly what we need coming out of this draft. Obviously, we're going to be one of the worst teams in the league still probably going into next year, but at least there's something to kind of build off of, which is really, really good. So yeah, shout out to the Wizards and Blazers, like I mentioned. And I want to do a quick shout out on my Toronto Raptors. We moved off Jalen McDaniels to get some extra draft capital. We got our Gary Chin replacement and Jacoby Walter. You know me from the last episode. I was pretty high on this guy. I didn't think he was going to fall to the Raptors, but he ended up doing it. I'm super happy to get him. Of course, Masai got his freaking his love for Cameroonian big men by drafting some guy from the NBA Academy of Africa and then with the 57th overall pick. But at the same time, we'll let Masai get that one. But I think the Raptors came out pretty good in this, and I think your Bulls honestly came out really good, getting like a pretty good steal at number 11 with Mataz.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see Montez Buzelis fall. Obviously, when we were doing our mock draft, he did not fall nearly as far. We had him going to the Detroit Pistons, as a lot of people did, obviously, as well. So to see him drop, the Chicago hometown kid thing is a really good element to play on. Even if he doesn't amount to a top 12 talent, overall, I think the PR aspect of this, especially if the Bulls do end up actually kind of committing to the rebuild, letting a DeMar DeRozan walk, trading a Zach LaVine, trying to figure out how to move off of a Nikola Vucevic. If they do finally commit to going the rebuild route with a Kobe White, Josh Giddey, Montas Buzelis, now you can kind of lean into the idea that okay, we're getting youthful, we're getting wing-size guys. We have Montas, who is a Chicago-born guy. You look at Alex Sarr, you look at Montez Buzelis, and there's a certain aspect of there's talent in the NBA draft is important, right? But there's also something important to factor in, which is guys genuinely wanting to be at your organization. You know what I mean? For Alex Sarr to want to be a Washington Wizard to the point that he basically helped fix the draft so that he could land with the Wizards at 2.
Yeah.
That's huge for a Wizards organization that's literally, despite being one of the biggest markets in the NBA, they're not treated as such because they haven't really garnered the respect to be viewed as a big market team, despite the fact that they're in one of the biggest markets in the NBA. So for Alex Sarr to want to be there is huge. For Montez Buzelis, Again, the Chicago Bulls, another big market team that kind of just doesn't act like it. For Matas Buzelis, again, obviously he's a homegrown kid, so it's a little bit
Yeah.
different. But for him to want to be there, it matters a lot when you think about the fact that these teams they're about to go down a direction that means that fans like me, ironically, I'm fans of both of these teams, being the Wizards and the Bulls, are
Yeah.
gonna have to be very patient to get guys that want to be in your building, that want to wear your jersey. It makes the rebuild process a little bit easier because you at least know that these guys do want to genuinely grow within the process.
100%. And I do like. I think both of our teams came out really well coming out of this draft. So that's good to know. At least we get to hear some positivity from a Raptors and Bulls fan today, which you didn't get a lot this season. So it's good that we're finally coming out here pretty happy. So yeah, those are good the good winners of the draft that we went through. Now let's turn it over to the losers. And I'm going to start over here. I mentioned it earlier. Kyle Filipowski. He did not have a good round two. He wanted to get drafted in the first round. He was there with his family. He didn't. But there were some reports that made teams very skeptical of drafting him regarding something with his current girlfriend, him taking away from his family. His family's said a lot of stuff going into this draft about his girlfriend kind of turning him against him, which made a lot of teams not want to take him. The Raptors included. He was probably pretty high on our draft boards, but apparently he got taken off at the last minute. Jay, I just want to throw it over to you and kind of give your thoughts on kind of this whole situation. Do you think that really affected his draft stock?
I'm not necessarily familiar with the story like in depth, but from my understanding, this is just kind of a guy at the moment that doesn't seem to have his head all the way on his shoulders. And obviously, strong foundational system is going to be really important. I think for a team like Toronto, you have to think about a lot of the adjustments that come with a young kid playing in a Toronto Raptors uniform. Obviously, going overseas potentially for the first time ever, playing away from home. Overall foundation is very important for a team like like a Toronto Raptors organization. Like when you talk about drafting a guy, Utah is another one of those where I think maybe this could be potentially impactful, but the talent just supersedes everything to me. I'm not going to lie to you. And Kyle Filipowski, this is a guy who has a real opportunity to stretch the floor at the big man spot. He has some real passing chops. Like he's a dude who I think could be like a 7-foot version of what Kelly Olynyk gave Utah. And another thing that I think will be really important is I think Utah might be the right kind of team to take a Kyle Filipowski with this background problem taking place, because Utah itself, and no offense to Utah natives and stuff like that, but this is a place where I think he should be able to just focus heavily on basketball. I think
very
this is
under the radar. Very under the radar.
Very low key, not necessarily a big market where the cameras are going to be in front of you every single day. This is a rebuilding franchise that's looking to take steps in the right direction. Obviously, with Kelly Olynyk walking, this is a team that looks to kind of like build slowly. They still have Taylor Hendricks in the room. They have John Collins in the room. So they have a decently well put together front court, but Kyle Filipowski should still be able to fit in relatively well. I wouldn't even be surprised if maybe he gets some burn in the G League kind of to start, just to kind of get his feet wet, considering the fact that this is a guy who you need to make sure he's still in basketball mindset. You know what I mean? But I think that the talent of Kyle Filipowski I think it just overall supersedes a lot of this off the court stuff. Nor am I going to judge a man for making, certain decisions at the end of the day, because we don't know what happens behind closed doors, despite the fact that there are a handful of reports that kind of explain some of the stuff that's taking place. I still think that Kyle, it sucks that it hurt his overall draft stock, but I think that a couple years down the line, teams are going to wish that they didn't overlook the talent that he provides, just because of silly reality TV stuff. It feels like,
Yeah, it's definitely a different, an interesting situation. I would definitely have you guys check it out. It doesn't sound good. Honestly, out of all this, I'm not painting Kyle Filipowski as a bad guy. If anything, he is the victim in this situation by all reports. So hopefully, whatever happens, that he's good in the head. He's be able to like focus on basketball and actually provide some good value to the Jazz. But it's unfortunate because this guy was a pretty like interesting prospect, potentially like a late round pick, high teens pick, and then he just started dropping and dropping. And finding out that news on second night really kind of like gave a different image of him. And we hate to see that, especially from a young guy. And like I said, he's probably the victim in the situation. But at the same time, you just want to make sure that he's like focused on basketball. And I think at least Utah, at the very least, is a good place for him to start. So hopefully, like everything turned out there. Just it was kind of a rough day, at least publicity wise for Kyle. But Jay, I'm gonna throw it over to you. Second loser of this draft. Who do you got?
Mine's the Milwaukee Bucks. Dude, what the heck are you doing? What like what was this draft for Milwaukee? Like, this was so weird to me that they reached so high on AJ Johnson out of the NBL. I was so confused as to why they took him at 23 when every mock and draft big board I saw had AJ somewhere slotted in like the 40s and 50s. And they took him at 23. And he's going to be a guy that probably doesn't get playing time for you next year. He very much fits like the raw prospect, very good upside, very nice athlete, still need to kind of figure himself out in terms of like how he fits on an NBA floor. And that sounds a lot like Marjon Beauchamp, who you already have in your locker room, who can't seem to get minutes on your team. And then you go in the second round and you get Tyler Smith at 33, who literally fits exactly what you need. You know what I mean? As a stretch big type. So it's like, wait a minute. So you get a young guy at 23 who you completely reached on, but then you get a guy at 33 who could probably play for you tomorrow just based off his skill set. So like, and granted, Tyler Smith is still a pretty raw prospect in his own right out of the G League Ignite. But if that three-point shot is real, his stretch big ability really gives them a different dynamic, because then you have multiple shooting options at the front court spot, depending on, if they hold on to Bobby Portis, but they still have Brook Lopez, at least for now, because obviously there's talks around maybe potentially moving Brook Lopez to be able to make some more depth work. But to grab AJ Johnson at 23, to me, was just such a reach for a Bucks team that, similar to Minnesota, like doesn't have a lot of like flexibility and needed situations like these to be able to open stuff up. TV, this felt like a Tyler Kolek team. It felt like a Tyler Kolek team. And for the New York Knicks to get him at 34, for the New York Knicks
going there.
I mean, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna just name a few people that I think would have been really interesting for them to get instead. Tyler Kolek obviously was one of them. Honestly, Kyle Filipowski to a lesser degree, I think just as a potential shooting option, I think he would have been interesting as well.
Johnny Furphy, I think, would have been a great spot there.
Furphy would have, I think that I completely agree with you. I think Johnny Furphy would have been a great fit there. That would have been a really interesting fit at the wing spot for them, where they are light. They are light at the 3 spot.
This for me felt like, I don't know if do you remember the Raptors from like 8 years ago when they draft, like, Masai's first ever draft pick was Bruno Caboclo?
Yeah.
Basically the Brazilian Kevin Durant. This felt like that from the Milwaukee Bucks.
I agree.
Sort of like a playoff kind of ready team, and they just reach on pure like build.
Yeah.
Just like the building. Like, it's a raw prospect, but is that what you need right now? Was that what the Raptors needed at the time? Like, to draft Bruno Caboclo? No. But they're really trusting, like, I mean, they were able to develop Giannis. I think they were really like, oh, we were able to develop Giannis. Maybe we could do something with this guy. But at the same time, like, you have your pieces there. You had to, like, got someone who's going to, like, help you out right away.
It's also a completely different window than what they were working with Giannis. This team is older, and they have to work within that. So, yes, getting young talent is kind of an important aspect, but really they just needed athleticism and or shooting. Yes, they got athleticism with AJ Johnson, but it doesn't matter if he doesn't play. Like, Baylor Shireman would have been great on this team.
Shireman would have been good.
KJ Simpson, who you were huge on during the early portion of the draft process, he would have been good on this team. Tyler Kolek, who I mentioned earlier, would have been good. Like, there were just so many other options that I think they could have gotten that would have legitimately fit the timeline of what's going on with this team. And instead, they went with a guy who's probably going to spend most of the year in the G League And then they get a guy at 33 who probably will actually play real rotational minutes for them. Instead of what they could have done, which is get two guys on very like, team friendly contracts that probably would actually produce for them. Like I said, I think Tyler Kolek would have actually been a perfect backup point guard for this team. Or again, KJ Simpson, who I mentioned earlier, they would have been perfect backup point guards for this team, and they fumbled the bag, in my opinion. Like, I think they completely fumbled the bag.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like, it's just like a weird first round choice for the Milwaukee Bucks. I like the Tyler Smith pick. I do like the Tyler Smith pick, but at the same time, like them going out and getting AJ Johnson, a relative unknown to many like people watching the draft who are like going into this. It just felt it was the Bruno Caboclo pick. It was truly the Bruno Caboclo pick, and I think that like. I just think that the Bucks could have came out just a lot better out of this.
Yes,
100%. All right, Van. I'm gonna go with my last loser over here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say this is a draft loser. They might not be an overall offseason loser, but I'm gonna go with the 76ers. And here's my thinking. I like Jared McCain. I like Jared McCain as a player, but the way they went about this draft process, like I feel like they could have got someone who, maybe like it could have made some moves to kind of like their team right away, but they kind of had to watch like other teams in the East kind of get better while they kind of stood pat. Like I feel like the Magic came out of this a lot better. Of course, the Knicks picking up Mikal Bridges is a lot really good for them. The rich get richer over there in Boston as they get freaking Baylor Shireman with the 30th overall pick, which is massive. And then you have the Philadelphia 76ers, and every time I just look at this team and I'm like, this is like the 5th or 6th best team in the East right now. There's a lot of I think that like Jared McCain was again a good player, but freaking Dalton Connect was right there. He would have been absolutely perfect for this team. And I think that they get with another point guard after signing Tyrese Maxey to a long-term deal. I see a way that Jared McCain could be a good part of this rotation, but same thing with the Bucks. They need to get players that can help right away, and I feel like Dalton Connect is just the perfect fit there. And the fact that you let him drop to the Lakers, who themselves could be considered winners of this draft for getting Dalton Connect, who was a potential top 10 pick that late. But I just feel like the 76ers, they stand pat, and over this past week or so, you just saw a lot of the East contenders that they were competing with just get better.
I think the reality of it is, and you said it, the rest of the East got better overnight, quickly. You know what I mean? It didn't take much time for these guys to really understand, yo, it's only gonna get harder from here in terms of being able to compete. From the perspective of, like you said, the Boston Celtics getting Baylor, the New York Knicks being able to do what they did with getting Mikal Bridges,
resigning OG,
and being able to bring OG Anunoby back in. Now, obviously, it's going to be a little tricky with bringing Isaiah Hartenstein back. That'll be kind of its own separate thing. Yeah. But I mean, you go down the list and you look at the teams in the Eastern Conference, and although I don't think Milwaukee got better, we do know who they are, talent-wise. Yeah. They're a team that didn't necessarily improve in my eyes, but I mean, I think a lot of teams in the East got better. The Wizards are not going to be great next year, but I think they're going to be better than they were last year. Detroit has a ton of cap space to be able to potentially make something happen. They're an interesting team, and they did pretty well in the draft, in my opinion, as well. And obviously these aren't teams that I'm naming as contenders, but I'm just saying from the top all the way to the bottom, the Eastern Conference definitely improved over the last couple of days. And I think that Philly has pigeonholed themselves to the point where I believe that if they don't get Paul George this summer, this summer is cooked. Yeah. I'm gonna put this out there, and I'll stand on it, because I don't care what happens. If they raise the Larry O'Brien at the end of the year, I'll be the first one to apologize. But I'm gonna put it like this: I think that if they do, I feel as though if the Philadelphia 76ers do not acquire Paul George this summer with the max cap space that they were able to create, something they've been waiting on for basically the last 2 to 3 years to be able to open up on their roster. If they do not acquire Paul George with this max cap space and then fill out the rest of their roster with comparable pieces to make them a real threat in the Eastern Conference, this is a team that I think is going to mess around and Probably not miss the playoffs because I don't think they're that bad, but I think they have the possibility of getting booted out in the first round again. And then we're going to be having real conversations about what Joel Embiid's future is long term. But this time, I think it's going to be real, not just a pump fake. This team really needs to hit hard this offseason. Sunday, they better be the first people on the phone. Like,
I think that's basically what it is to me. Like, when I see like how they came out of this draft, all this told me is if you don't think of Paul George, this was not a good offseason for you guys, and you're just like pigeonholing yourself to like one sort of scenario. And sure, I mean, if he does come in, he's gonna be like he will be impactful right away. You might have to sign him to a 4-year deal, but he's gonna be impactful right away.
Right.
But it's kind of the only option you have left, which is like a hard hole for the Philadelphia 76ers to be in. While he's just, again, you see the other teams just getting better. Even a team like the Pacers, you can even like make the argument that they're even like in a more competitive space right now, especially bringing back Pascal Siakam, getting Johnny Furphy to help out their rotation as well. Kind of like came out of like these last few days better than the 76ers.
Yeah, I fear for them, man, because I feel like this is the definition of putting all your eggs in one basket. And if the Clippers are even remotely able to sweeten the deal for Paul George enough to make him pivot back to returning to the Clippers, Philly's cooked. Like, OG's off the table. Paul George would be off the table. You're obviously not going after James Harden, or if, Russ decides to drop his player option, you're not going to do that. So,
right.
Are you going after DeMar DeRozan potentially? That's tough. That's a tough fit. I think he's obviously a good shot creator for them, and they do need somebody to be able to operate in the mid-range area. So he would be an interesting fit, but like, is he the needle mover that gets you out of the East? Like, I'm telling you as a Bulls fan, I don't think DeMar DeRozan puts them over the top with the talent that they're probably walking in with next year. Like, DeMar fits well on a Los Angeles Lakers team or on a LA Clippers team, ironically, that kind of squad. If Paul George messes around and goes to the Clippers, or shoot, all the rumors keep saying there might be some kind of potential run at the Golden State Warriors trying to make a play for him, then Philly is left holding the bag where they might have to bring like a Tobias Harris back or throw way too much money at a very old Klay Thompson just to even remotely feel good about like the fact that they have all this cap space.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just like a tough situation for them to be put in. And it's like, you always want to leave yourself with some options. You always want to leave with yourself some options. And it's looking like it's one option only for Philly. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to say the sky's going to be falling, but it's going to feel like there's going to be like a lot more work for the Philly to do to be able to get back to contender status. But yeah, those are our thoughts on the draft. Let us know down below what you guys think, winners or losers. Who do you have for there? What's the team that we didn't mention? If we didn't mention your team, let us know what you guys think of your team's draft down below. We'd love to hear all your thoughts. Yeah. But Jay, not only is this a draft episode, we're talking about NBA free agency, which kicks off this Sunday, and what we're gonna do today is to look at the top 15 free agents, at least what we consider the top 15 free agents, and find out where they're gonna land this offseason. Obviously, we're not gonna go super in depth as we did with like the winners and stuff, but we want to see where we think these guys are gonna end up, and if they're gonna move places or they're gonna stay. Who knows? But Jay, what do you think of this free agency coming up? Do you think we're gonna see some fireworks?
I think there's a real opportunity. Obviously, the biggest thing is that there's not a ton of big names in this class compared to other free agency classes that we've seen beforehand. LeBron James opted out, but Bronny just got drafted to the Lakers. Let's be honest. We know what's about to happen. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things that are just kind of understood. Klay Thompson being an interesting conversation piece. DeMar DeRozan, who still hasn't signed an extension or picked up any kind of real contract talks with the Bulls, is still a guy who somebody could throw a bag at. Like, there's still a lot of real opportunity for this free agency to be really interesting. But a lot of the big names have already come off the table. Pascal was one of those guys. He's been locked up. OG, we got the news on him. Nicholas Claxton, we got the news on him already. Yeah. Like, a lot of the guys who you thought would have kind of helped really shake this thing up are not on the table anymore. And it really changes the dynamic because now you're going to have to really pick and choose.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously the free agent cost isn't like super duper crazy, but there's gonna be some guys that are gonna be some needle movers here. So it's gonna be interesting to see how these guys line up. So the way we're gonna do this is we have a board, we have a piece of paper. We're basically gonna name a player, and we're gonna put up where we think they're gonna land, and where they're gonna land at the end of free agency. So, yeah, you ready to get through these players?
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. There's a certain aspect of me that is probably going to be kind of spicy about this one, and it's probably just me having more fun than actually being predictive. So don't
Yeah,
take everything I say like in terms of me trying to like really, push for anything. But like I am gonna try to have a little bit of fun with this because the hope is that free agency, because the class is not super insane, my hope is that these guys actually decide to really shake up the league and go, to different places. So if you see a
100%.
little bit of like, left field stuff, it's because, there's going to be reporting behind it. I'm not just going to like pick random
Yeah.
places for the sake of picking them, but at the same time, like I want to see some real player movement. So it might reflect in some of my picks, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. I'm all for the player movement as well. So you might see some like interesting spots from me as well. But Jay, we're gonna go through these guys pretty quick. We're gonna go with the first one here, Paul George. Where is he gonna end up? All right, you have your name down.
Yep.
All right, Paul George. Where's he gonna land? 3, 2, 1. Golden State. Oh my God, I went Philly. I went Philly with Paul George. Quick thoughts on him going to Golden State?
I mean, from some of the stuff that I've been reading, it seems like they're the second suitor. I literally was on a betting website earlier and I pulled it back up right now. And it says that the Clippers are the favorites at minus 200 odds to bring back Paul George, considering they're able to, obviously give him the best overall sweetener deal. But it seems like the potential of him going to Golden State is really picking up steam. And if we're talking about now, obviously there's a financial aspect to them being able to make the space to make it all work. But if this is about winning basketball games, I think Golden State actually might be a better winning situation than the Clippers right now. Kawhi Leonard is always injured. He's seen that for the last 3 to 4 years. Outside of the very first year they appeared in the Clippers uniforms, Kawhi has never made it through a postseason, like since that first year.
Yes.
And this team continues to flame out no matter how many superstar talents they continue to add to the roster. They just can't seem to get over the hump. I think that Golden State, on the other hand, who's coming off of a championship just a few seasons ago, is a team that with a Paul George on the roster, whether they're able to bring Klay Thompson back or not, putting him next to a Stephen Curry and a Draymond Green, it completely gives a whole different dynamic. He doesn't have to leave the California area, which is probably something that he does that is probably important to him, considering his Palmdale roots and stuff like that. I'm not gonna. There's a lot of reporting that put that behind this that says that Golden State is going to make a real push for him, and I think that it actually might be worth it if he considers it.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's happening with the Klay Thompson situation right now over there in Golden State. But if they still want to make the use of the final Steph Curry years, you're going to need to compete. Paul George will help you compete right now. Are they going to give him the 4-year contract that he is so forward to looking to? Who knows? But at the same time, the Warriors are not shy with spending money. I feel like they've been part of the second apron for a while now. But if they're gonna be in the second apron, try and get some like high level talent, and Paul George could definitely be that.
Real
Yes,
quick, just to clarify too, obviously the Klay Thompson aspect of this would not be impacted too much because of the fact that if Golden State were to go after him, it would have to be in the form of a sign and trade with the LA Clippers. A lot of the reporting has been focused around bringing Wiggins and Chris
so that
Paul
would make
in.
sense.
Yeah,
that would make more sense. Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, so this is something where, I mean, think about how dangerous that team is. Steph Curry, Paul George goes back to the 2, Klay Thompson plays the 3, Draymond Green at the 4, and then insert center here. I mean,
Chris Jackson Davis at this point, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, TJD is definitely one of those guys I wouldn't be too mad at, especially considering the fact that Kevon Looney's not going to be on the roster next year, like, or at least just as like things are currently set. I mean, that's still a filthy starting five, low key. Like, that's still, even in 2024, that's still a very scary starting five to work with.
Yeah, no, I like that place. I like that placement over there to Warriors. I'm just gonna go with Philly just because I feel like it's been written in the stars for the past like for a while now. Ever since he like there were reports about him like already kind of like showing his like telling the Clippers that he doesn't want to come back, like and like wants to find like a new scenario. I feel like Philly's perked for him. I think like having like that wing presence already like matched up with Maxey and Embiid just feels like a match made in heaven. And like we mentioned, if he doesn't go to Philly, Philly's kind of screwed about what's going to happen next. So it's kind of do or die for him. So I'm going to end up with him going to Philly. Feels like the obvious choice, but I'm going to have him going there. Jay, ready for the next guy?
Yes, sir.
We're going to go ahead and find a new place, or maybe he'll stay. James Harden. Where do you see James Harden ending up?
All right.
So you ready?
Yes, sir.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, I think we both but LAC, yeah, I think we both end up doing it. They need to fill those toilets, man. They need to fill those toilets up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so I mean, like Harden going to the Clippers, it feels like if Paul George is basically almost gone there, they just need to keep some of that star talent over there. Harden, they trade for him in this season. They need to find some way to bring him back.
I mean, it's self-explanatory. Like, they have to. They have to keep as much star talent as they possibly can. In this scenario that we're talking about, if PG decides to go to either a Philly or is in a signing trade to go to the Clippers, to go to Golden State, they still have to be able to shore up that point guard position. Obviously, they have Russ, but James Harden would be another star talent they would just need to really, keep this team afloat. So
yeah, 100%. And especially moving to a new arena next year, you're gonna want to find a reason to do it. So having at the very least, a Kawhi Leonard, James Harden duo, at least that's something to kind of build off on. So I think Harden does stay with the Clippers. Jay, this guy has been like making headlines all over the place. Klay Thompson, man, where do you think he ultimately lands?
Yeah, this one's tough.
This is a tough one. Will the impossible happen? Will the impossible happen? Are you ready?
I hope I'm wrong, but yes, I'm ready.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Bro, I can't see him leaving. I can't.
Now,
even though there's news about it, I still don't believe it.
Look, I don't know. I don't think he's going to leave. The PG-13 trade would definitely really shore things up in a different way. If it comes down to money, then I think that he's going to walk, and the Orlando Magic definitely should throw him a bag as a shooting option on the team that clearly looks ahead of schedule. Not too ahead of schedule, but definitely a team that could be very competitive in the Eastern Conference. They showed us that last season. I hope he stays with Golden State. I hope that Golden State could do the sign and trade with Paul George and still keep Klay Thompson on the team and then fill out the run. Think about that. You have, Steph, PG, Klay, Draymond, Trace Jackson. You still got Pods. You still have Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, who maybe you could still use Kuminga to maybe go after another potential win now player. Like, it gives them a lot of optionality. I hope Klay Thompson stays on this team. I just think that if it comes down to money, he's not going to be around much longer.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, I won't believe it until I see it. Klay Thompson is a Golden State Warrior through and through. And until I see him like at that Magic press conference or whatever press conference he's going to end up in, I'm not going to believe it. I'm going to say he stays with the Golden State Warriors. I think the world is hoping he stays with the Golden State Warriors for the sake of just like letting the dynasty die the way it's supposed to.
Right.
But man, but him getting another jersey just won't feel right. It feels like Sean Kemp. It feels like Gary Payton at the end of his career. It just won't feel right.
Yeah, I mean, true. I definitely don't disagree with you. It's one of those things that wouldn't be really a big fan of seeing it happen. But again, man, money talks in this league, and
It
he's
does.
definitely on the last legs of his career, and securing one more decent payday would, it would really open things up.
100%. I definitely see that possibility happening as well. Jay, next player, still staying in the shooting realm. Buddy Hield. Now he got
I'm gonna
traded to
be
the
honest, I
Sixers.
have no clue how the heck this is gonna go, but
Let's just roll with it. He could potentially be one of those like mid-level exception guys. Who knows? But let's see who we both have. Are you ready?
yep.
3, 2, 1. Now. Hey, look, we talked about they need shooting. We
I
talked about
agree. I agree more with you than my pick. I just think that if if this goes the way I projected with them missing out on Paul George, they're gonna kind of have to start kind of scrambling to throw money at guys to make this whole thing work. And retaining Buddy might be like something to like really consider.
Yeah, I think that the Magic are gonna end up making. I'm not gonna say it's like a huge splash or anything, but they're gonna make
Mhm.
some like a pretty decent deal at the two guard position. And I think out of all the guys that we have on this list, I feel like Buddy Hield is the perfect guy to put there. Someone who doesn't like need the ball, like need to be on ball to really be effective. They already have like their guys kind of set up where they have like a point. Obviously, they still need like some point guard help, but they have Paolo Banchero running the offense, Franz Wagner, and I think Buddy Hield could just be that guy where he could just like run around like a road runner on the perimeter and just find himself open for three a lot. They need some shooting, as seen in that Cavs series. So Buddy Hield being one of the best 3-point shooters probably of the past decade would be a great fit for Orlando.
Yeah, watch out for the Pistons as well. They obviously have some money and need shooting desperately.
100%. That was another team I was definitely like thinking of for Buddy Hield. All right, next player, Isaiah Hartenstein. Gonna be interesting
My
because
guy.
this is gonna be interesting because they just resigned OG. They brought in Mikal Bridges. Or did they find any money? Do they find the money for this, or does he end up on a new team? Let's see. I have my choice.
I got mine.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Hey!
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts quickly on the OKC idea.
I mean, this has been discussed for a while, and obviously he fits a lot of what they want to do. Not necessarily from the shooting department, but he's a tenacious defender. I told you all postseason long when we was talking about that knockdown floater he's gotten, in floater range. He was really, different in that spot. They need to shore up the center position as much as possible. Obviously, Nicholas Claxton is no longer on the board with him going back to the Brooklyn Nets, and this is something that they need to really kind of invest real capital into. And Isaiah Hartenstein, he's deservedly like a $20 million a year player. And ironically enough, Oklahoma City has about $20 million of
$20.
space to make it all happen. So, I mean, now it's just one of those things of getting the job done. After getting Alex Caruso, I think if they get Isaiah Hartenstein on top of this,
That would be a damn good offseason.
wow. And I mean, obviously, they're a team that many have mentioned as like a Paul George sleeper in terms of being able to acquire him, not necessarily in terms of like getting him in a sense they can bring him into cap space if they do some other things in terms of letting a handful of guys go to really open up a little bit more space for themselves. But I mean, getting Hartenstein would be like a perfect kind of way to kind of shore up this roster if they decide not to do too much else.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I mean, they have just about the amount of cap space that they need to get Isaiah Hartenstein, and I think that he would just be a perfect fit over there. As you know from myself, I've been trying to play Cupid with them and just a bunch of other centers in the league that they could like absolutely use over there to back up Chad Holmgren, or maybe even start beside Chad Holmgren. Who knows how the situation is going to turn out? But at the end of the day, I think Isaiah Hartenstein, he's shown his value in this league this past season, especially in the absence of Mitch Robb. I think he would be just a perfect guy to put there in OKC.
Mm-hmm.
100%. All right, next player, Jay, Tobias Harris. Now, last week when we were thinking of this list, you wanted me him off this list, but I think that there's a chance that he might actually be a top 15 free agent. Where do you think he lands? We're gonna put our guesses over here. You ready?
Yes, sir.
3, 2, 1. Oh my god!
Hey. I'm just following the intel, man. This is one of those where I'm just following the intel.
This feels like such a Pistons type of signing.
Dude, there's no way he's even allowed back in the state of Philly unless it's an away game, dog. Like, for real.
There's
Like,
no way he's coming back.
I think just for his own personal sake, I think this is Tobias Harris's chance to pull like a Jeremy Grant and like go to the Pistons on like a pretty lucrative deal, go back over to like playing the wing position as a solid starter, gets the ball out on a team that's not that good, but gets to show that he is like, a really good scoring threat, maybe boost up his trade value a little bit, and then Detroit flips him again in like a year. Like, I think this is like just a real Jeremy Grant-esque kind of opportunity for himself. And like, I'm not gonna lie to you, like, bro, look, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, go get your bread, go show the league that you aren't this, fourth option on a good team that everybody pegged you as with what you did in Philly. Like, go get a bag and go be good. Go be good with the Pistons. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, no, he needs to definitely like kind of like get in some good graces like here in the league. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, what hurt him was his contract in terms of public perception. Obviously, it didn't hurt his pockets, but it did hurt his perception around the league because they paid him like a top 3 guy on their team when clearly he was not. But I think this, again, a good chance, like you mentioned with the Jeremy Grant situation, build his value back up, see that he is still like a solid star in this league. And maybe after a year or two, he can find himself in a better situation. But he's going to have to eat some crow over there in Detroit for the time being after that performance he did in the elimination game for the 76ers. So he needs to definitely revitalize his career. But I do think that him on the Pistons, they need some vets as well. So I think that place would be pretty solid for him.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, man. We're going to go over to your side of things, man. Probably, like, again, the player that connects us in terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, DeMar DeRozan. He's a free agent. Does he move? Does he stay? Are you ready to put up your board?
Yep.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Oh, wow. Okay. Your thoughts on the 76ers? I mean, you don't have them having Paul George, so they're going to have to spend the money somewhere.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what rounds it out. No Paul George, no Klay Thompson. Based off the way we're doing this, no Paul George, no Klay Thompson. Next best guy on the list, especially at the wing position, DeMar DeRozan. You have to also remind yourself, all the news is pointing to the fact that it sounds like whatever trade market originally was brewing up for Jimmy Butler, sounds like it ain't too great anymore. And it sounds like the Miami Heat are a lot closer to having a real negotiation with Jimmy compared to where things were a couple of months ago, or shoot, even a couple of weeks ago when he was over there flexing Cameron Brink's number 22 jersey in those Lakers purple and gold colors. So the Sixers have to throw this max money somewhere. I don't think Sixers fans are going to be super excited if they finish the offseason with Buddy Hield and DeMar DeRozan as their 2 big signings. But at the same time, they got to use that max money somewhere. And I think that the best way that they can maximize it is still getting one of the better big wing shooters in the league with bringing Buddy Hield back, and B, again, retaining a guy like, or not retaining, but bringing a guy in like DeMar DeRozan, who is like a knockdown shooter for you. They lacked shot creation in a way that feels like disrespectful even when you talk about a team like Philly that has real championship aspirations. To only have Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey as the only on-ball shot creators for this team last year felt like a disservice. So to bring in a guy like DeMar DeRozan, it definitely shores them up in that regard because it gives them one more guy that you can give the ball to down the stretch, and he can go get you a bucket. It's not the best offseason they could have, but if things go the way we're lining things up so far, it's much better than, having to get a lot of middling guys just to kind of fill out the roster.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like DeMar DeRozan really has 2 options here. If he still wants the money, and if that's ending up on the Philadelphia 76ers, if they strike out on Paul George, or he ends up just staying back with the Bulls on what would it be, like a 2-year deal or something like that at this point?
It sounds like he wants a 3-year deal, and it sounds like that's the reason why they couldn't agree on the 2 years, $80 million. So I have to assume that he has some kind of 3-year, maybe he has a 4-year deal somewhere. I have no clue, but to turn down 2 years, $80 million. he's got to have something out there on the market that's talking to him nice, because that's a pretty good balloon payment for a guy who's definitely looking at probably his last big lucrative contract.
Yeah, 100%. I think that.
Love you, DeMar, by the way.
Yeah,
Love
we
you, man.
love you over here, man. But again, there's only very few teams with some cap space, and if these are probably the only two options that you have at this point, and at this point, like in free agency. So either both are 76ers. All right, let's go with his best friend, sticking it with the Toronto theme, kind of, Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry.
This is another good one.
It's another good one. I have mine on the list. Do you have
mine?
yours? Mm-hmm. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. He stays with the 76ers. Go ahead.
I mean, obviously, feel good story. You would be able to reunite DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry in this regard, based off, again, how we're doing the free agency stuff. They would be able to link back up. Again, Kyle Lowry's a Philadelphia native. He's a dude who I think takes pride in being able to play for what would be considered his hometown team. Being able to link back up with DeMar DeRozan in the backcourt would just be another element that gives them something different. There's a lot that comes with this. Kyle Lowry, I think, was a good player for Philly in spurts last year as well. Gave them a little bit of a tenacious feel. He does a lot of the like Patrick Beverley things, but with a lot more control. And obviously, I still think that Kyle Lowry is like just a better player than Patrick Beverley on both sides of the ball. Not necessarily a better defender overall, but I think he's a smarter defender. I think he is a better offensive creator, but also a better point guard in terms of being able to run an offense too.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that, when they start getting to a lot of the on the margin stuff, Kyle Lowry is on the, the further end of his prime. And I think they should be able to get him on like a pretty like fair team friendly deal. And like I said, if Philly has to go this route where you're going down the list and you miss out on a Paul George, you're not going after out there James Harden, you miss out on a Klay Thompson. If you have to get DeMar DeRozan, you can bring Kyle Lowry back. Like, you could create some narratives from a PR standpoint to kind of make up for the fact that like you missed out on the big fish.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like, again, honestly, that is probably the most likely scenario. But honestly, this idea came to me because right before we recorded this episode, Russell Westbrook said he's probably like going to be leaving the Clippers at the end of at free agency. So they need a backup point guard. Kyle Lowry, you're not going to ask him to do too much, especially backing up James Harden. They just need someone just solid at that point, someone who is just like reliable at the point guard position, especially if they end up losing Paul George. Just try and get some like just extra bodies in there. I think Lowry on the Clippers would be a pretty good spot, and I think he already has that connection with Kawhi as well.
Yeah, of course that also really works out for them too.
Yeah, 100%. Jay, we're heading back to your neck of the woods, and we finally get to decide what's going to happen with Patrick Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready? I'm going to just write down my name quickly over here. You ready to go?
I have mine.
All right. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I don't see him leaving Chicago.
Nah, the youth movement is just too real right now. You could tell between Matas trading for Josh Giddey. I think the fact that we're probably going to younger talent when we decide to move off of Zach LaVine. I think a lot of any cap space that does free up from letting DeMar DeRozan potentially walk, in this case, DeMar DeRozan would be changing teams. We're probably going to focus on much younger talent. Hopefully front court talent, because Jesus Christ, like, we kind of need the help there. But yeah, I mean, I just think realistically speaking, like, they're not going to let him walk. I don't think we've seen the best of him. And I think that if DeMar DeRozan does walk, this is Patrick Williams' best opportunity to be able to kind of show the Bulls Nation, like, what he's really worth. And it sounds like from every indication that we've gotten, it sounds like he's going to be ready by training camp. This is a guy who had a season-ending injury last year and is going to be coming back. It's going to be really interesting to see how they go about things. But remember, this is also a team that might end up severing ties from Lonzo Ball as well. I think there's a real youth movement heading Chicago's way, and I just don't see a world where Patrick Williams isn't a part of it, whether Bulls fans agree with it or not.
Yeah, it's again, you mentioned it right there. The youth movement is strong over there, and it feels counterintuitive not to be going through this type of movement and not bringing back Patrick Williams. I mean, he's shown some flashes, and at this point, like, there's no real, especially with the direction you're heading, there's like no really harm in like bringing him back because even he's not going to make a huge contract. Maybe down the line he's just a tradable contract at the end of the day.
Right.
Those are still valuable in the league. So having him just around, it just hurts a lot more for the Bulls to lose him and then to bring him back on supposedly more money. It's just like good financial business as well. So I think like him staying with the Bulls is just best for everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, next guy on the list, Miles Bridges.
It's
Miles Bridges.
another one of those interesting names, man. Another one of those interesting.
Another one of those interesting names, but I think I found a place for him. Jay, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Yeah. Just feels like a perfect fit at this point.
Yeah, Detroit they have a decent amount of money on them. It's going to be interesting to see how they go about divvying it up. Obviously, in this rundown, I have them taking Tobias Harris as well. So they're going to have to kind of really divvy up their cap space. But when you look at it, I mean, they have near a max salary spot and then some. So like they've got more than enough money to really kind of throw a decent amount of bread at a few players, to be honest. Like
honestly,
this is a Pistons team where like you don't like the idea of them trying to like, speed up the process too much, but like Joe Harris, $20 million off. Evan Fournier, expiring contract. Killian Hayes, James Wiseman, they're basically going to be expiring contracts on this roster. They don't have very much money on the books. And I think, A, they need veteranship in the locker room. This is a team that cannot have what happened last year happen again. And B, look, no one's talking about it because for some reason he's been one of the most under-discussed number one overall picks we've ever seen. But like, Cade Cunningham is going into a rookie extension year, and people really need to know, including the front office of the Detroit Pistons, really need to know, is Detroit going to be able to build around like a Cade Cunningham long term? Like, is Cade Cunningham the guy to build around long term? You have to get guys that can help prove or disprove that. Remember what I was saying all last season about the importance of Fred VanVleet for the Houston Rockets? It wasn't the fact that he was a talented point guard that gave them like this veteranship at the point guard position to like, just like give them another really good talent in the room. No, it's the fact that Fred VanVleet is a good on-ball defender, very good team defender, very good point guard from a mental game standpoint, and he helped actualize an Alperen Sengun. He helped show us how impactful a Jabari Smith Jr. can be on defense. He was a very good complementary point guard next to a Dylan Brooks at the wing spot. He showed us that like Jalen Green to a lesser degree when he's an on-ball threat is really good, but off the ball can't seem to operate as well. Like Fred VanVleet helped open up people's eyes to the things that are both good and things that are really bad about the Houston Rockets roster from a team building perspective and get a better understanding of who fits and who doesn't. 100%. I think this is another one of those instances with the Pistons. Yeah, same kind of concept.
Yeah, you can't just get young guys. You can't just keep throwing like young guys at the table and just hoping they stick forever. You need to get some guys in here to kind of see if these young guys can hang. Miles Bridges fills the exact role that you need over there in Detroit. He's probably willing to take lesser of a deal because he needs to rehabilitate his own image as well. He feels like just the right guy to have at that weight position next to a Cade Cunningham, next to a Jaden Ivey, especially if you want to play fast. And this team looks like they want to play fast. Miles Bridges is the perfect guy to put over there. It feels like this has been like a foregone conclusion since like he came back to the Hornets, and it's looked like he like wasn't going to return after the rest of his contract. Pistons is just the perfect place for him.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not mistaken as well, right? Didn't not only did Detroit take Detroit took Ron Holland at 5, but if I'm not mistaken, didn't they take they took Bobby Klippman. So you even saw in their draft this year, they're focused on wing athleticism. Like that seemed to be a very glaring skill set to them in this draft class. Granted, Bobby Klippman is more of like a 4 or 5, but the idea of getting athletic downhill players seemed to be a real theme through their 2 draft picks in this year's draft class. Miles Bridges, when healthy and on the floor, is definitely like one of the best wing slashers in the league as a tenacious finisher, really good in the open floor. He's going to be a guy who can create on ball. We got to remember, before all this off the court bullshit happened with him, the dude was averaging 20 points per game and was the best player on the Charlotte Hornets. That was a team that had went to back-to-back, play-in tournament games.
Yeah.
Like, this dude is a special talent when all the BS off the court isn't at the forefront of the narrative around him.
100%. And I think the Pistons, again, a place where he could just stay low, just work on his game, and get back to like being what the player he was. I think it's a great place for him. All right, next player, Andre Drummond, another one of your guys from last year. Let's see where. Are you ready to? Do you have your name down for this guy?
I have no clue. Give me a hot little second, real quick.
Don't worry. I
no idea.
I felt like there was a lot of options, but it's just like trying to find like which one would you like best, because I feel like him as a mid-level exception guy just feels like perfect on a lot of teams.
I just see a lot of teams that say no cap space over the cap team, no cap space. Like, I don't know. Give me a second. I'm still scrolling here because I'm trying to find somebody.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You know what? I don't know how they're gonna pull it off, but I think that they got to do what they got to do. I got the team.
Got the team. All right. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
You're probably right. And I hope that you're right, because like the Bulls, Andre Drummond was our best center last year, which is hilarious considering we just gave Nikola Vucevic a contract extension, basically. So Andre Drummond should be a priority for the Bulls, but Memphis going after another big, burly, rebound-centric center after picking up Zach Edey in the draft, I think that would probably be a good idea.
Do they have cap space? Not really, but I think they have just
really.
enough of the mid-level exception. Like, again, they're like the first mid-level exception, so you can't give him the full 12 mil, but you can give him like 5 to 6 million through your mid-level exception. Will he accept that? Like, I say that he just ends up going there and just helps, like, maybe like start over Zach Edey for a little bit until he's maybe ready to be the full-time starting center for the Grizzlies. But I just feel like, as someone that's like, I was thinking either this place or the Wizards, and I feel like he fits better in a more like win now ready team, and I think that the Grizzlies would be the right spots.
Yeah, I mean, he also fits next to, like, if a Jaren Jackson Jr. plays the 4, like, because, Jaren's not known for his rebounding. That's kind of why Steven Adams fits so well next to him. You know, for a guy like Drummond, he's like the perfect kind of guy if we're talking about rebounding. That's like Andre Drummond's like top skill as a guy who like once grabbed 20 rebounds in a single game multiple times in a single season. Like, this is,
right.
He rebound chaser on Hall of Fame for sure. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. It just feels like it just feels like the ideal Steven Adams replacement. I think it's a good spot for Andre Drummond. 4 more guys to go. Derrick Jones Jr. I mean, he had a stellar playoff run this past year.
I think if somebody really looks at him hard, they're gonna throw a bag. They might try to throw a bag at him. I'm not entirely certain, but it would be interesting if somebody really went to outbid Dallas.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. 3, 2, 1. Stay with Dallas, man. Just run it back.
Yeah, dude. I think he just had a really good year. Luka actualized him in a way that I think a lot of teams haven't been able to. Portland got to see a little bit of him. Obviously, he had a run with my Chicago Bulls where he was pretty well. But, like, this was his best three-point shooting season. He showed a lot of real promise on both sides of the floor this year. He just fits really well. Run it back, man. Dallas is a good team. I think Dallas, if they're smart, isn't going to want to let him walk. Whether they have enough money to be able to back that up is a completely different conversation.
Yeah. This is the first team to really actualize like all of Derrick Jones Jr. because you could see like bits and pieces in other areas that he has been at, but you got the most out of him here. Career year shooting, you saw the athleticism, you saw the defensive capabilities. Just run it back, man. Just like you had such a good run with them, especially as their starting small forward. it would just be a shame to see him leave the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, I 100% agree with you.
All right, next guy on the list. A couple more guys to go. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Now, if the Reggie Jackson trade indicates anything, we'll see. But let's see who we have. Jay, let me know when you're ready.
I hope I'm wrong.
All right, 3, 2, 1. That was my other option. That was gonna be my other option. Yeah.
I mean, and to be honest with you, if we're being honest, if I'm not mistaken, what would that be? That would be they would have KCP. That would Tobias Harris and Miles Bridges. I gotta be honest, that would be low key W off season for Pistons. Low key W off season.
Low key, yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't taken KCP and Miles Bridges, but even just coming out with those two, with the roster they have right now, I think it'd be pretty good.
But Denver can't let this man escape. But I think it's just going to be tough. I mean, Jamal Murray is set to sign his contract extension next year. They've got to look at what the market is for Aaron Gordon, who also was going to be up for a contract extension. Like, this is a team that's
paying MPJ,
who he's probably going to end up being a casualty somewhere during this season, somewhere either during this offseason or sometime during the season next year. MPJ is going to be a casualty. Financially, it's going to be untenable, and he is the linchpin. Like, he's the guy that I think if you have to go down their list of guys who they might have to prioritize, I think MPJ, might actually end up being at the bottom. Just in terms of the guys that they have that are, big money makers. MPJ probably has the best trade value because he's still, relatively young, while also being the guy that probably is the most expendable when you think about how their roster functions.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's going to be hard to maintain him, but I feel like the trade with Reggie Jackson kind of indicates that they're going to try all they can to retain him, and I think the Nuggets can't afford to lose him. I think them not bringing him back and paying the thing is going to hurt them more in the long term than just bringing him back in total. So just try and run it back at least for this time. You still have to figure out your bench, but you can't lose KCP in the process.
Yeah.
All right, and the last two guys. First up, now we're finally hitting one of my Toronto Raptors, Gary Trent Jr. Let's see where he's going to end up.
Well, we know he is not going back to Toronto. I feel confident
after the moves we made, and now signing Emmanuel quickly to a $175 million deal, he is definitely not returning to the Toronto Raptors.
Nope.
But who knows? Who knows? He might just come back. There's a way. I've seen some ways they could do it, but I doubt he's coming back. You have your team?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Okay. Washington Wizards. What do you talk about me? Talk to me.
So they still have the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception that they're able to use to potentially go after another guy who can stretch the floor for them. This is a team that still lacks shooting. Tyus Jones and Kyle Kuzma are probably on the trade block, and there's probably a realistic market for the both of them. What they're able to do in terms of youthful talent, that'll be interesting. Gary Trent, he's a guy who is shown on-ball defensive chops, can shoot the ball at from beyond the arc at a pretty decent clip. Probably won't start for this Wizards team. Just because I think that, they still want to be able to see what the young guys do. But say they keep a Tyus Jones and a Kyle Kuzma, I could see a world where maybe they actually do decide to start Gary Trent at the 2 and kind of let that one play out, and then let their young guys, probably be Tyus Jones at the 1, Gary Trent at the 2, still have Kyle Kuzma. Alex Sarr sounds like he wants to play the 4, so figuring out that 5-man position will still be interesting. But if he does end up playing the 5, they have the wing depth with, a handful of guys to potentially kind of flesh out a decent starting 5 and then, play things out from there.
Yeah, no, I think the Wizards are definitely a good spot for him. Same thing with my idea with the Jazz. They have a lot of ball handlers. They have a lot of maybe good defensive centers. It's just
they have guards, TV.
A lot of guards, but they have a lot of guards that need to have the ball in their hands. Gary Trent needs to be kind of that off-ball guy that the Jazz are looking for at the moment. I have a feeling they're going to move off Jordan Clarkson, and I think that they need someone to fill that role. Someone on the younger side, I think Gary Trent can fit that. Basically, so I think it's not. I know they have a lot of guards. I understand they have a lot of guards, but they need some guys that don't need the ball in their hands to like to be a threat off ball. That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. Need some more off ball threats. I think Gary Trent Jr. can provide that. The last guy on the list, Jonas Valanciunas. Jonas Valanciunas on the list. Ready to go?
Yep.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Ooh, I like that. I like this first one. I
I
didn't
like
really think
yours. I like yours too. I like the Wizards too, especially because of the whole Alex Sarr potentially wanting to play the 4 thing.
Yeah.
That means they basically still don't really have a center because the only guy that comes to mind is Marvin Bagley III. And I know they want to tank, but damn, like you know what I
Not that
mean?
bad. Not that bad.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ. But so I like his fit with Washington. I just also think that like they need a real like I don't know. They just the Spurs need a real burly guy to like be to back up Victor Wembanyama. I think they just need it. I mean, they've got the defense from Victor. I think they just need another physical big body presence. I think Victor played well at the 5, but I think there's opportunities. We saw last year where Zach Collins played the 5, Victor Wembanyama played the 4, and there was some interesting lineups with that one that did work out a little bit as well. So a Jonas Valanciunas is kind of like a much thicker version. Gives you a lot more, he gives you a lot more well, he doesn't he shows off spacing chops. I'll put it that way. I don't want to say he gives you spacing because I'm not sitting here calling Jonas Valanciunas some super reliable 3-point shooter or anything, but he gives you some 3-point shooting chops, and they've got $20 to $40 million and nothing to do with it outside of maybe going after point guards. So I mean, why not get why not get like a real backup center? Zach Collins is always injured.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a good spot for him. I think again, just like having like just that backup protection for Wemby, just having a burly guy down there, they don't have that in San Antonio, so it's a good place for him. Same thing here with the Wizards. Alex Sarr potentially wants to play the 4. He could play the 5, and he's like a pretty solid rebounder there. Can be a good role post presence. Has a little bit of a 3 ball. He gives him a little bit of everything at that center position. Of course, you're gonna have the defense there in Alex Sarr anyways, so you're not gonna expect him to be kind of that anchor as he is for the New Orleans Pelicans. So Valanciunas on the Wizards, I think it's not a bad option, especially because they still have a bit of money.
Hey man,
Yeah,
if this offseason goes anything like how we set it up, it'll be a really fun one to watch. I kind of hope that this much player movement actually does happen because then we will have a totally different looking league next year.
100%. But yeah, that's our cool. That is our free agent preview of where we expect the top 15 free agents to end up going. Let us know down below if you agree or disagree, or even with some of the other guys that are on the board still. Let us know where you think those guys are going to go as well. Final 2 segments of the show is it is a free throw staple. It is now the NBA draft, and we have finished the NBA draft series where we go through each year, and now we're going to go with some theme drafts. And with this being NBA draft week, I decided to kind of put a negative spin on it. I don't want to put a negative spin, but I tried to do something really fun here. We're going to try and draft not the best lineup, but the biggest NBA draft buzz in NBA history sort of lineup. Jay, how do you feel about this draft that we're doing today?
So I thought this one was pretty hilarious, and I'm gonna try to be a little unconventional. Where obviously you're gonna pick a couple of names that stick out that are just like the obvious top of the board ones. But I also want to kind of pick a few that I think like are a little bit more recent history that'll really like jog some memories and make people realize like, dang, it wasn't even that long ago that we were putting this guy at the top of the pedestal as maybe one of the best prospects of the draft class, and he just like fell off the earth.
100%. And you know how these drafts go? G gets the first pick, I get the next 2, and we run things serpentine style. There's a lot of draft busts in history. There's a lot of number 2s, number 1s who ended up being absolute disappointments in the league. But we're gonna see how this draft is gonna shape up. Jay, with the number 1 overall pick, this is the type of draft where you don't want to be the number 1 overall pick in. But with the number 1 overall pick, who do you have?
I am going to go with Mr. McDonald's himself. Let me get Anthony Bennett.
That was the obvious number 1. People still don't know why he got drafted number 1 to this day, and he kind of like made it even worse for himself by being like out of the league and after 3 years. So Anthony Bennett, clear number 1 over there. For myself, I'm gonna go with 2 classics over here. I'm gonna go with Mr. Kwame Brown, guy with the small hands. Obviously, that awesome Stephen A. Smith thread. He's gonna be running my center position. I could not go with Kwame Brown. And then the guy who I don't know. I remember seeing I know I was super young when this guy got drafted, but at the same time, I remember just looking at him and thinking that he is gonna absolutely kill the league because of the college highlights I saw. Adam Morrison.
Yeah.
Adam Morrison. I don't know. I just thought he was gonna be like I don't know. My young 6 or 7-year-old mind couldn't really comprehend it at all. But still, I thought he was gonna be a really good NBA player because like wow, this guy was absolutely dominant. But yeah, he was out the league pretty quickly. Adam Morrison over there will be my second pick.
I mean, hey, look, Adam Morrison, definitely one of those guys that I feel like everybody thought. I mean, don't get me wrong, still one of the best college players, when you look back. But
yeah,
I mean, yikes. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. All right, Jay, your next 2 picks. Who do you got?
TV. Do you remember the good old name Derek Williams?
I love drafting him in 2K11, thinking he was gonna be a beast.
Dude, 6'9", super athletic power forward out of Arizona in the 2011 draft. Oh, by the way, in case some of you guys were wondering, this is the draft where Kyrie Irving was taken first, and Kemba Walker was taken 9th. Klay Thompson was taken 11th. Kawhi Leonard went 15th.
Jimmy Butler went 30.
Nikola Vucevic went 16th. Tobias Harris went 19th. Damian Lillard, as you mentioned, Jimmy Butler went 30th. Even a Reggie Jackson mentioning at 24. Yeah. And good old Derek Williams. Good luck to you, brother.
Yeah, tough couple times. He tried revitalizing his career in like different spots, but it just could never work out.
And then TV, I'm gonna give you another one, and this one's a lot more recent, and it's a guy that I was actually super hype about when he came out of college, and I think he just went to a team that just didn't fit initially, and then it just seemed like it didn't work out any further from there. And guess who that guy is? It's going to be Jarrett Culver.
Wow, that's
sixth overall to Minnesota, gets moved over to Memphis, and it just seemed like the dude just cannot find his fitting. He was one of the best guards / wings coming out of Texas Tech to me that year. I thought 6 was actually low-key kind of like a respectable spot, maybe even a little low for what his skill set was supposed to translate as. And instead, it seems like he's barely been able to find any real footing in the league. It's insane to think that was only a couple of years ago. And now we're looking at him as like one of the biggest busts ever.
Yeah, it's tough. But he basically was a G League player in like 3 years. He was like a G League player that quickly. It's absolutely crazy how things ended up for Jarrett Culver. But yeah, that's a good pick. My next 2, one's personal, one was I have a funny story compared for this guy. First up, the really personal one, Josh Jackson.
Damn it, that was definitely one of my next guys too.
I was so high on this dude, man. I thought he was a prototypical NBA wing. I thought he could develop a jumper. He was gonna be a great defender, and none of that really materialized. Like, he had a lot of off the court issues as well, which is really unfortunate. I remember he like people were wondering where was he at this autograph signing he was supposed to be at. Oh, he was in jail. Oh, interesting. But yeah, it's just a really unfortunate career for Josh Jackson. He's still kind of like putting himself around in the G League, trying to find a new NBA job. But for the 4th overall pick for the Suns, a guy who was like a perfect fit for them at the time, to amount to basically out the league after like 6 years. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Josh Jackson I feel like Josh Jackson had to be in this conversation somewhere. There was no way I think he was going to go undrafted. Not in this draft, at least.
Not in this draft, especially when you have Jay and TV on this, there's no way he was going to go. He was going to go undrafted. And then the second guy here, I'm going to go with a name that you may not have heard of, but I think you might have. But this is going to unlock something in your brain. Jan Vesely.
Yikes. Shout out to the Wizards, man. Shout out to the Wizards.
When this man's NBA highlight was the draft night smooch he gave to his girl, and that was the only thing that came out of his whole NBA career, you know something went wrong. Because he played 2 years for the Wizards and was out of here. Not just out of the league. This guy was like, F the NBA, I'm out of here. And this is like the 5th or 6th overall pick. And the only thing people remember him for was that kiss on draft night. Literally all he was remembered for.
Damn, that's a name, man. Y'all, again, you guys gotta remember, I'm a Chicago Bulls fan at heart. Love the Memphis Grizzlies, just kind of like as a John Morant stan. Yeah. OKC Thunder is my favorite Western Conference team, but I live here in Maryland, so the Wizards are a team that I just like know about front to back over the last 10 to 12 years. Yeah. Jan Vesely, not our best work. Not our best work.
Not at all. The fact that he just said quit the Wizards and just quit the NBA altogether is some crazy work over there from Jan Vesely. All right, Jay, you got two more. I think you got 2 more picks to go. Who do you have closing out your lineup?
All right, TV. So one of these is a name that we actually mentioned on the podcast in passing, and I think he's a great option here. Let's go with Marvin Bagley III. Come on, man. We got to look at the draft class he's coming out of and some of the guys that, just so happen to be drafted after him. And both of them have played in a conference finals. That's all I'm saying. And one of them has played in the NBA finals. This guy's closest thing to an NBA finals is scoring 20 and 10 for the Wizards.
That's a career highlight.
Yeah, that's a little tough. And then TV, my last pick, this one, I got to go a little bit hilarious with this one. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
With my final pick in this draft, I'm going to go with former number 10 overall pick, Thon Maker.
Okay, yeah. I know what you mean here. Kevin Garnett is still trying to make the case till this day.
Come on, man. Back in the day, if you used to watch Ball is Life, you thought this guy was going to be a demon by the time he got to the league. So much so that they were showing us McCourt Maker highlights. I think it's either younger brother or like a cousin. Yeah. And they were showing us his highlights as well. And you thought that we were about to have 2 next Kevin Durant entering the league within the next 4 to 5 years. No, not that one. Not that one.
Kevin Garnett literally said before the draft that this guy was going to be a future MVP.
Oh man,
that's a tough one. Yeah.
Nice.
My final pick, and man, I have to choose this guy because of just the amount of coverage his rookie season got for all the wrong reasons as well. This guy was the number 1 overall pick, and he's a solid player now, but man, I would still consider one of the biggest busts. Markelle Fultz.
Fair.
Markelle Fultz. You got to remember, right? This guy came to the 76ers broken. He was they drafted him as this new fresh toy. They traded up in the draft to get him. They removed the chance for them to get Jason Tatum in order to do this. And this guy came with a broke jumper. There was coverage about we were examining this man's elbow. Is it popped out? What happened? We're comparing his college tape to his NBA tape. And just figure out what the heck happened to this number 1 overall pick. And to be fair, he's making a career out of himself. He's had some solid years here in Orlando. I'm glad he's getting his career back on track. But for the fact that they traded up to get him, got rid of an NBA champion, multiple-time All-NBA player, and Jason Tatum, a chance to get him. And then there's just the other guys in the draft they could have got. Donovan Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox, Lauri Markkanen. This is just all in the first 13 picks, all these great players. And you ended up with Markelle Fultz, and he was off your roster in 3 years.
Jesus, man, that's great.
Especially for Philly. They just love drafting their freaking injured players, don't they?
Yeah. TV, did you have any honorable mentions?
Did I?
Right? No, for
there
real.
Was so many. Speaking of freaking Philly guys, and a guy that I was super high on, Jahlil Okafor. Yeah. Shout out to my boy over there. Of course, Michael Olowokandi, some guys from back in the day. But there's so many guys that just disappointed, and this list could be endless. Who are some of the guys you were thinking?
I had 3 that kind of stood out. One, Dragan Bender.
Dragan was definitely on my list. Yeah.
Yeah, OG, the OG version of what everybody thought was going to be the original, Kristaps Porzingis. Thomas Robinson out of Kansas, who got drafted by the Sacramento Kings over Damian Lillard hilariously.
Yeah.
Funny story about this. TV, I'll have to show you this off pod. I actually have a Thomas Robinson Sacramento Kings jersey in my
Crazy.
closet.
That is a pull. Oh
so I'll show you that off pod. I actually think that's pretty hilarious. And then the third one, the entire 2000 NBA draft class.
Y'all are real.
Shout out to Marcus Fizer, man. Jesus Christ.
Jesus, man. So many good ones. Just to shout out some other guys here. Johnny Flynn, the fact that he was one of the 2 guys drafted before Steph Curry. I thought that Chris Dunn was going to be a star. I thought this was going to be
me and you both. I thought we fleeced Minnesota, man. I thought we did at least. Jesus Christ.
Mario Hezonja, one of the few guys that we thought was going to be one of those like European like wonder kids.
Dunked on LeBron one time and forgot the rest of his career. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was his biggest career highlight. Jeez, man. There's so many good ones. Yo, Shabazz Muhammad, I know he was a later lottery pick, but this guy was the number 1 guy coming in high school. I thought this guy was going to be it.
Oh my God, that's another name, dude. Shabazz Muhammad is one of those where you just thought, like, dude, he was like Draymond before Draymond. It felt like back then, like
he was like the all-around player. His scoring ability, the thing was just like at that time felt like it was gonna be like 10 times the amount that Draymond was gonna be. Like it's gonna be insane.
Gosh.
Yeah, but yeah, let us know some of the guys that you would put in this list down below. We tried to go more recent, especially guys that we followed as we were younger and kind of saw the demise of at the end of the day. But yeah, let us know down below what you guys think. Oh yeah, we have to go through our teams quickly. I forgot to do that. I'm gonna go through mine quick. At the 1, Markelle Fultz. At the 2, Adam Morrison. At the 3, Josh Jackson. At the 4, Jan Vesely and Kwame Brown, the captain of the team, running the 5.
Man, this sounds like we're putting together an 0-82 challenge. Good God. So my team is Jarrett Culver at the 1, Derek Williams at the 2, put Anthony Bennett at the 3, Marvin Bagley at the 4, and then Thon Maker at the 5.
That sounds like a coach's nightmare. Like, what the hell are you supposed to do with that? Jeez, man. Let us know down below what you guys think. Who has the worst team of the 2 of us? Who has the worst team of the 2 of us? Let us know down below what you guys think. But man, we're going to the final segment of the show, and it's time for the NBA quiz. And Jay, this quiz is pretty straightforward. There have been, let's see, I'm going to say how many guys here? We have 11 guys since the year 2003 that have made the NBA All-Star game as a second-round pick. And I need you to name me all 11 of these players on the list, Jay. That is the quiz for today.
Okay, so they're just second rounders who made
an All-Star team,
an All-Star game.
Yes, and they had to be drafted at least in 2003.
Okay, that's not bad. That's pretty doable.
I think all of these names are very, very gettable.
Yeah, that's very doable. So Chris Middleton has to be here.
Yep, drafted in 2012.
Draymond, obviously.
Yep, drafted also two picks in 2012 that from the second round that ended up making an All-Star team.
Okay. Jokic, duh. Oh my gosh, gotta make sure I remember that one.
Yes, 100%. Technically, they're the second most recent draft pick to have made to make the All-Star team from the second round.
Oh well, I guess this is like recent, but like Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, he's the most recent draftee.
Yeah.
To make an All-Star team from the second round. He was drafted in 2018.
Okay.
So yeah, everything else is 2011 and before.
Okay, but since 2003, so obviously 2003.
There's a range. Yeah, there's a range there.
Yeah. Is Rashard Lewis in the range?
Rashard Lewis was drafted in 98.
Damn it. I should have known that. Duh. Seattle Supersonics. Duh.
Just a lot of solid guys with like long career.
That weird Atlanta team. So Kyle Korver had to be one of them.
I thought that was gonna be one of the hard ones, but yep, he was drafted in 2003, traded for a photocopier. He also made one All-Star team.
Good God. There's someone else from that Atlanta team that made an All-Star team that was a second rounder.
Stick to that. Stick to that train of thought.
By the way, in that starting five, DeMarre Carroll didn't make the All-Star team, right?
No, there's
Okay,
definitely
thank
someone
God.
better than there's definitely someone better than him here.
Okay. Ooh. Well, Al Horford wasn't taken in the second round, and Jeff
No,
Teague was. Oh, Paul Millsap.
Paul Millsap.
Yeah, I was gonna say Al Horford was not taken in the second round, and neither was Jeff Teague.
Yeah, so 2006 draft, Paul Millsap was a 47th overall pick.
Okay. We're cooking. We're cooking low key.
Yes, you're missing. I think 5 more players. Yeah, 5 more players.
5 more players. Ooh, that's kind of hefty.
3 of them are guards.
Oh, no pressure.
2 of these guys probably think only made like 1 or 2 All-Star appearances. One of the guards that got drafted here was like one of the best point guards in the league for like a 2-year stretch, 2-3 year stretch.
Okay, that's a very short window, but that's a very specific as well. Is this This is a Gilbert?
Gilbert was drafted in 01.
Damn it! Oh my God, bro! You could tell you could tell I'm trying to be in my bag, bro. But like, okay, that's tough. Okay, think, Jay. Think.
We also have 2 set. What do you say?
Wait, I don't think he made an All-Star team though.
What were you gonna say? Just throw it out there.
I was gonna say Malcolm Brogdon, but he didn't make an All-Star team.
No, he did not. But I like that train of thought.
Dang it. That's gonna.
Yes.
Who am I thinking of? You said guards.
There's again one guy. Again, one of the best point guards in the league. He made This guy got screwed.
Wait! Don't give me the hit. Don't give me the. Don't tell me. It's Isaiah Thomas. That's the person you're talking about. 2-year stretch. I was trying to think of who the heck. That's why I said Gilbert. Gilbert was like good, but obviously he had the injuries, the gun incident, stuff like that. So that's who I was trying to think of. But 2 years. Isaiah Thomas. Yes.
Isaiah Thomas. Yes. That's okay. That's the 5th most recent guy, 2011 draft. Okay. Now everything else is like 2008, and so we have 2 guys from 2008, a 2007 guy, and a 2003 guy. We have 2 bigs and
All-Star team. Think, Jalen. Think.
I don't know if we complain about
one-time All-Star Goran Dragic.
That's one of the guards.
Come on, man. Come on. I'm here. Okay, you said there's multiple guards and multiple pigs. When was Marc Gasol drafted?
That's another one of the guys on the list. 2007 draft. 2007 draft.
Let's cook.
Really. Now you're missing just one big and one guard.
One big, one guard.
Something specific about this guard? I think he made it as a replacement.
One big, one guard. Okay. Let's think.
The guard is definitely the harder one.
Okay, that's good to know.
He basically made it because one of the best teams in the East, and he got kind of like he got propped up by one of the greatest.
That guard is gonna stump me, but the guy that I think. Okay, give me the year. Give me the year for both of them.
The draft? Or the years they made the draft?
The year they made the All-Star. I mean, no, the year they got drafted, excuse me.
We have an 08 guy, and we also have a guy from 03.
08 and 03. Okay.
The center is going to, his resume is going to show that he was a better player than he was, but he was still a very good center for the early to mid 2010s.
08 and 03. Okay, I'm going to guess 03 first. I think, is that Mo Williams?
It is Mo Williams
Okay,
on
cool,
at 03.
cool. Okay, so I got the harder one, but somehow
Yeah.
the harder one was the one that I actually was like the more confident in.
Yeah.
08, 08, 08. Second round is where things get really tricky. So because I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
That's why I told you tell me draft classes, because I'm actually pretty decent about going through like like basketball reference with that kind of stuff. But like,
yeah, this is a
08.
How many times has this guy made? Yes,
When is he a multi-time All-Star or just once?
one time.
What year was it?
He made the All-Star team in 2017.
2017. Okay, so this is like peak power Warriors, Houston Rockets.
Hilariously enough, this guy was a one-time All-Star but three-time All-NBA.
Okay, so I know off that hint alone that, I think you said it's a big man and a guard. So he's definitely a center. Definitely.
Yeah.
Just because of the way you phrased that. Definitely a center. 2017. Oh my. Okay. This is peak power Warriors, Houston Rockets, Oklahoma City Thunder, but Ibaka is not a second rounder. I don't think so. Also, I don't think Ibaka made an All-Star team.
I don't think he didn't make one for sure. Defensive beast, two-time rebounding champion, two-time All-Defense. One of the most likable guys in the league, I will say. And a recent NBA champion, not this year, but the previous year.
All defense is tricky because I don't know if this fits him at all. 2017. Clint Capella didn't make an All-Star team, right?
No, but stick with the conference during that time.
Okay. Because I'm trying. 2017. This is end of Lob City Clippers. Is it DeAndre Jordan?
It's DeAndre Jordan.
Oh,
yes.
Let's go. Drafted out of Texas 08. Yes.
There you go. DeAndre Jordan in 08.
Wow, what the heck? Wait, he was a two-time defense team?
All defense team 2 times, 3-time All-NBA. This is the era where like you had to pick a center, and then like DeAndre Jordan I think made like one All-NBA like I think first team or second team, and people were like up in arms during that time.
Wow, what the heck? Him on the defense team is a tricky one. Him making All-NBA as a center, like in general, that third team is always kind of tricky when you had to pick a center. And I felt like he was like just one of the best centers on like one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah.
So that's why he got the nod. But all defense team?
Yeah.
I'm sure the Nuggets would love that from him right now.
Honestly, I mean, Prime DJ would have been awesome as a backup to Jokic as well, for sure. But yeah, since 2003, all the second round picks that made an All-Star team. Yeah, pretty good that we got it through. The fact that you were able to get Mo Williams before him is actually pretty crazy too. But yeah, good, nice job over there. Let me know what you guys think of this quiz. If you want, like, what other quizzes you want to see going forward, let me know down below. Of course, shoot us a DM, put a comment, all that good stuff. Jay, we had a lot to cover in this episode: the draft, free agency, all that. But we finally reached the end. Thank you guys for watching. What do you have to tell these beautiful people before we sign out?
Dude, I mean, if this isn't the offseason, what is? We had a bombshell mid-pod. Like, welcome to the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, man, where we are literally reacting to news as we get it, dude. Come on. This is what we this is what the offseason is about. And the evergreen content is going to be even more interesting. Definitely give us ideas in the comment section for different things to discuss. Me and TV already have a couple of things in the woodworks, but obviously it's going to be a long offseason, long road back to October. So it's going to be a lot of fun still talking basketball, but we've got to come up with some different ideas, some unique opportunities here with the fact that, we've got an interesting rookie class. Summer League will be here before you know it. Free agency starts on Sunday. We will be back here on Monday, probably talking we've got some stuff on the docket, but by Monday, no later than Wednesday, we are going to break down some of the bigger things that happen in terms of free agency by then. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, man, I mean, welcome to the NBA offseason. We are at yet another really fun time in the NBA season. Look, anytime there's basketball, discussions being had. Is a fun time in the NBA, but there's nothing like NBA free agency, man. This is where the spicy stuff happens.
100%, and you're gonna be able to catch up through all of this through the Hit Your Free Throws pod on the freaking on the TikToks and Instagrams. Of course, you're gonna find all of that through the clips, through these episodes. So make sure you check out all of that. Follow us along throughout the entire NBA offseason, throughout the WNBA season, throughout all kinds of basketball. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to check out the any other episodes on YouTube. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Show love on the podcast networks, the daily stuff on the Instagram and TikTok, and also check out our individual pages. Of course, those links will be found down below. But yeah, this is the end of the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys. This is TV and Jay signing out. Peace.